I've just realized something very important, I think, and that is that oftentimes I feel like I'm pretty confident in what I'm saying and stating, and it seems like some people find this to be a bad thing, and especially if I'm very quickly changing my mind about what I'm thinking about a particular thing. And in the past, I have made it such that I wouldn't say the things, but I think this is very bad actually, because it makes me worse at thinking good things. Like, you don't want that part of you which is saying things like, oh, you can't do this, you're not good enough. You don't want that part to control you at all. Because if it does, then it will make it such that you constantly question yourself, and overly questioning yourself is definitely a pretty big failure mode, I think. Like when you stop thinking about, or like you stop optimizing towards getting the solution to the problem you're trying to solve and just think, huh, am I smart enough to solve this problem? Or maybe I can't do this problem. Um, then that's just, that's very unproductive in actually solving the problem. So, like, I'm not quite sure. Okay, now you're not as smart as like is physically possible or whatever, or like not the smartest person on earth. Then I'm not quite sure what that actually changes. Either you can solve the problem or you can't solve the problem. Um, but being a certain level of intelligence is, in some sense, kind of irrelevant. Like, it's not actually solving the problem. So if you want to have cognition that solves the problem, then you shouldn't have that. Like, if you have the thing where you constantly, instead of thinking of the problem, it's like, oh, this is hard. Maybe I can't do it. Maybe I'm too dumb. Maybe, um, like, I don't know. This just seems very obviously unproductive to me. And I feel like that when I'm sort of confident in myself and what I'm saying, then this sort of thing doesn't really happen. There's like this force that pushes against me not thinking about the actual thing when I'm sort of in a confident state. And I guess with confidence, I mean a very specific thing. I don't mean like I estimate high probability that this is correct, but more like a mental attitude towards what are the things that you're saying. Like, I could be saying like, I don't know, and I could say it very confidently. And I guess I'm somewhat confused myself what I mean with confidence here. So the confidence is not about probability mass I assign to particular events being observed to take a particular value. So like, I could very confidently say there is a banana on my head. Um, or I could say I don't know if there's a banana on my head. Um, Maybe the important point here is that you are disabling the self-questioning of, like, you just pick the self out of the picture and you sort of just think about the actual problem and don't defer onto this level of making the problem be you. I think that's what I mean with confident. You're not making, you're not trying to search the problem for you, but you just take you and then you're gonna apply it to solve the problem. And I guess most people would actually not do this because they sort of feel like they don't have some sort of approval that they would need or whatever. And then they don't even, like, they don't give themselves permission to do this. They have to be like questioning themselves if they can do it. And only if there are some external authority tells them, yes, you can do this, you can actually think about the problem, then they actually think about the problem. So I guess in summary, we want to make it such that we question not ourselves when optimizing, but we're only talking plainly and thinking plainly about how am I going to achieve this optimization objective. And one thing that I haven't mentioned really, I think, to the necessary extent is that the problem with this thinking of like this self-questioning thinking is that it is really pervasive, really pervasive. It is sort of, first of all, hard to stop, and it's like super distracting. Like once you get into a spiral of questioning yourself, like it's really hard to get out of it. And this is kind of really dumb, in part because your brain is just, well, you know, in the evolutionary environment, you didn't encounter certain kinds of problems. Like there wasn't like, here's a really extremely difficult math problem that you could like try to solve and now be optimized for solving it. Like it seems like a very common failure scenario is in the beginning of expecting the problem to be way easier than it actually is, and then being very discouraged by only observing, like basically you think, oh, this problem is really easy, I'm going to make this much progress in like one day, and then you're like, oh, I only did like 1% of that progress. Maybe I'm really dumb and can't do this. I can't even think about the thing. And this is just potentially a problem with you not being able to correctly estimate the difficulty. In fact, that's like basically the case with anything. Like that seems like a really common failure scenario. For example, when I was like learning Japanese briefly in the beginning, it was like, what the fuck is going on? I don't understand anything all the time. Um, and then it was not that I was understanding it more quickly, but it was just I was realizing what's the actual process of learning the words. And it's like, oh, that's the actual process, my model of how you acquire new words. Before I was just completely bad. And it was actually not mapping to reality of what it actually means to acquire this language. And the same is, I think, true with doing mathematics or programming. And yeah, it seems like the human brain is just really bad at estimating things that are outside of the evolutionary environment. Like, for example, how long would it take to write this program? Well, normally it takes way longer than I think it does. And that's why I'm even at least partly aware that I'm like, basically I fall into this failure mode, even though I have observed extremely often in the past that I have this failure mode. So like being aware of the failure mode, though I could probably do a better job of that, is not necessarily fixing the underlying prediction algorithm in your brain. Okay, anyway, that is sort of another reason why you should be pretty skeptical when you start to question yourself that this is actually the best thing to do. Like, I guess I would recommend, I don't know, I would recommend, I guess, trying to figure it out for once. Can you do this? And then, like, never think about it again, because I don't really see the point. Well, I see the point in actually not doing that. Like, you want to avoid that once you are clear that you're not actually wasting completely your time by solving this problem, whatever like the problem is, because you actually determined that you are too dumb. But I mean, if you're too dumb to do that, it feels like you would probably not realize that you're too dumb. I don't know. Probably there's like some stuff going on where you could describe what's going on. Like maybe at a certain level of intelligence, you realize, oh, I'm too dumb to do this. But you're smart enough to realize that you're too dumb to do this. And then you would be like, oh, I should do not this problem, but this other problem because, well, I mean, it could simply be that you have a particular skill set and they're like, oh, I'm too bad at working with this problem because my skill set is actually really good at solving X. Or like, let's say, really good at making new bananas, new kinds of banana breeds. Because for some reason that's really good. Let's imagine that we are not gonna be killed by AGI, but our problem is having lots of bananas, so that would be so nice. Then maybe you realize, oh wait, I don't have actually any banana breeding skills. Maybe instead of breeding bananas directly, I'm gonna because I'm like a really good electromechanical engineer, I'm gonna like design sort of efficiency improvements to the like farmhouses that we grow bananas in, which then will have a much bigger impact because it will also accelerate the people who are good at making new banana breeds. Because now they have better farmhouses to work with, or things like that, you know? Okay, I feel like I was a bit rambling here, but I want to kind of summarize, I guess, the point of this. It is once you are sort of pretty confident there's a particular thing that you can be doing, which is sort of in some sense the best thing that you can be doing, you should like stop questioning yourself, just like throw it out the window. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how you do that. I think I actually kind of managed to do this. Not quite sure how to communicate that. But basically, you want to do this. I feel like if you uh, I mean, I guess in this video I try to sort of give you the context for what is the particular mindset that you would need to have, or like that I have, sort of when I put it into words, that allows me to throw it out the window, my self-doubt. Once it becomes obviously just a burden that makes me worse at thinking. So I guess the general lesson is you shouldn't be a slave to the mental algorithms that evolution has installed in your brain, because it is some really weird stuff that doesn't make any sense. And realizing that and seeing them as algorithms, which is another interesting topic, is probably actually helpful, because then I can realize, oh, I'm doing this algorithm right now that's making me question myself, which was probably useful in this context in the evolution environment. Like finding my niche in the tribe, and it's like, oh, I could be good at this. I don't know if that's actually true, but that seems like one plausible explanation. And today it really doesn't make any sense, basically. So, okay, the even more general lesson then is be careful with what algorithms your brain is executing, because they might be very counterproductive, and by recognizing them and disendorsing them, you can make them less of a burden.